Hello, students. Thank you so much for joining me for another math lesson with Mr. Whitford. Right now, today, we're going to be going over lesson one of unit two, and we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing integers in this unit. Specifically, today, we're going to be talking about how to multiply integers. And we're going to be talking about both same signs and different signs. So if you have your assignment with me, please look on with me. If you need to access it, you can always download and print it from Google Classroom. All right, so let's look at the worksheet together. As with every worksheet, take a minute to begin to work on the bell work. As you can see here, the bell work is asking you to write the math equation that represents the sentences below and do that on the line that's provided for you. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes, pause the video if you need to, and try to complete all four of these. All right, let's look at them. All right, let's look at them with the hopes that you had your time to be able to pause the video and write down what you believe these answers are. I'm going to read them. I'm going to underline or highlight some important information because I know that there's good stuff here that I want to make sure we focus on. The first one says the product of, right? The word product, you should recognize that that word means multiplication. It means we're multiplying something, right? There's a few ways to indicate multiplication. You can put a dot like I just did. You can put parentheses. We try to steer clear of the letter X is because we're going further into algebra. X can also represent a variable. So use a dot, use parentheses to indicate that you are talking about multiplication. It says the product of 2, so we're multiplying 2 and 3, so 2 times 3, and it says is. The word is indicates an equal sign, and that's equal to 6. So 2 times 3 equals 6. This is what that particular numerical equation would look like. Okay, the next one says 6 is 2 times. Once again, the word times is an important word here. It's telling us about multiplication. So I'm going to write out something that looks like this. 6, yep, my apologies. 6 is equal sign 2 times 3. Okay, you can use parentheses, you can use a dot, either one is a-okay. 5 multiplied by 4 is 20. So multiply once again, 5 multiplied by 4 is 20. Notice how we're reading it. Notice how this is the way, if you were to read a numerical expression, this is the words that you would use, okay? And last but not least, I like this word tripled in here. You should know that that word right here, it means 3 times, right? Okay, so 4 tripled is 12. So 4 tripled is 12, all right? Okay, great. Hopefully you got these as well. What we're talking about today is this. I want to talk about negative and positive numbers. Up until a certain point in your math career, you have been working on dealing with just positive integers, positive numbers, right? Not only will this year, we're going to stretch you to understand negative numbers, we're going to stretch you to understand fractions and decimals and even square roots. But I want to focus specifically right now on helping you relate to negative and positive numbers. So a negative number, according to our visualizing vocabulary, is a number that is less than 0. So any number, just like whole numbers, right? There are also the opposite of that. There's inverses, opposite of whole numbers are negative numbers. Opposite of positive numbers, sorry, are negative numbers. 1 has an opposite, negative 1. 2 has an opposite, negative 2. And you know positive numbers are anything that's greater than 0, all right? Now, how do we multiply integers? How do we multiply integers, whether they're the same sign, whether they're different signs? That's what I want us to focus on. Now, the independent practice one is a nice chance for you to practice showing some of your math skills, showing some of your memorization techniques for multiplication. I'm not going to go through them so much right now, but I am going to jump straight down to the modeling because I want to talk about what happens when you do multiply with negative numbers, right? If you look at modeling A, what you'll notice here, we have -3 times -3. And I know earlier on, I said, let's try to steer clear from the X. On this worksheet, I used it only because it's very clear that that shows this multiplication rather than the letter X. But nonetheless, -3 times -3, right? What happens here? Before we look at the negatives, let's just talk about, well, 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, right? We know 3 times 3 is 9. It's something that we can remember in our multiplication, our times tables. But now we have inverse, we have negatives. So a -3 times a -3, what happens there? Should the answer here be a -9? Not the case. A negative times a negative will always give you a positive, right? A little key that you can write to help yourself is something like this. Negative multiplied, that means multiplication, by another negative equals a positive. Whereas we're going to see in a little bit what happens when you have opposite signs. But when we have same signs, like negative times negative, it gives you a positive, just like a positive times a positive gives you a positive. And we see that in 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 gives you a positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is also going to give you a positive 9. All right. So that's what we're working on here. We're realizing, okay, when they have the same sign, we're multiplying, same sign, answer is positive, right? If you want to write a note here, same sign, positive answer. Okay. Let's talk about B. Now, B looks a little bit different. Now, why is that the case? Because we have 3 times negative 3. We already know that 3 times 3 gives us 9. But notice here, we have one that's negative. Oh, my apologies. We have one that's negative and the other one is positive, right? This is going to change up our answer in a way that we probably never thought. 3 times 3 is 9. But when we have opposite signs, it's going to give us a negative number here. Okay. So what does that mean? That means when we multiply, one positive, one negative, right? And we put a multiplication sign in the middle, right? It's going to end up giving us a negative answer. Okay. This is a different rule than the other two, where if they're the same sign, it gives you a positive. But if they're opposite signs, and it doesn't matter, the first one could be negative and the second one could be positive, it's going to still give you a negative as your answer. All right. Take a minute, internalize this process, because not only are you going to use your multiplication skills that you already acquired, but now you also need to apply this same sign, different sign concept to see if, okay, are they the same sign or are they different signs? If they're different signs, my answer should be negative. If they're the same sign and we're multiplying or dividing, my answer should be positive, okay? Take a second, do the reflection questions, do the independent practice questions, and I'm looking forward to you mastering this concept called multiplying with same signs and different signs. As usual, if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them on Google Classroom. Feel free to include them in a question make. But I look forward to hearing from you guys. Best of luck. Have a wonderful day.